I wanted to talk about the exponential growth of technology. I work in technology. My background is in the creative arts. I studied fine art, and I found my way through into digital technologies, and now I work with a creative digital technology company, and we make immersive, experiential kind of events and installations using cutting-edge tech. And I'm always kind of struck by just how much technology is moving on, and how much, so much of the time, you know, something seems to take us by surprise. So I want to take us on a little journey, starting off maybe 130,000 years ago. The first human revolution, our first iteration of our brains, that very first operating system that was created that enabled us to kind of advance the other competition that was there at the time, and actually kind of make it through to where we are today. So one of the things that our brains enabled us to do was to have complex thought and emotion and a sense of wonderment. We looked up at the skies and we wondered in awe, and we wanted to know what it was all about. And that was the very thing that kind of drove us, and it drove our evolution, because we wanted to seek to understand the environment that was around us, and we wanted to be able to not only just cope with the environment, but also to prosper and develop. So we noticed the cycles of the moon and the stars, and this algorithm that was set by nature that gave us this sense of time. Now, since then, we've obviously created calendars. We now wear time all the time. We are constantly conscious of time, and it's everywhere around us. We're constantly running out of it. Some of the themes that have been discussed already, we're completely obsessed with it. But if you look at the evolution over time of this 130,000 years or so, there's been quite slow progression for many hundreds of thousands of years. And now we're experiencing times which are changing very rapidly. So we're going to go on a bit of a time machine, and you'll probably notice that some entire eras will be missed out. It's a time machine that I've created, so there'll be facts missing. Some of it you might think, what the hell is that about? But you know, it's my time machine, so I hope you enjoy it, and I hope that it gives you a few bits of food for thought. So we recognize 300 million patterns. That's quite an amazing machine that's in our heads. And now, I don't profess to be a brain specialist, and if there's anybody in this room that is, I would love to talk to you later, because I am fascinated by it. I read a lot of books about psychology and the brain. But it's fascinating that this thing, which actually also resembles a lot of the technology that we create today, is in our heads. And so over the years, we developed this. So not only the brains in our heads, we connected with each other. We knew that through collaboration, we were able to come up with tools and ways to solve puzzles, ways to solve the environment, ways to grow food. So this is 10,000 BC, the agricultural revolution, the very ancient agricultural revolution. Now this was a time where we started to kind of figure out how to grow food. And there's lots of connections to the talks earlier. This was also a time where we went from being hunter-gatherers to starting to settle down, because we could stay in one place. We domesticated animals, and we started to prosper. So populations started to grow. Fast forwarding now to 3,500 we see, and this is the wheel, the invention of the wheel. Now, apparently the wheel was initially actually created for potters, and it was going round this way, and it probably took quite a long time for somebody to roll it on the floor and think, wow, this thing actually moves forward. And actually the thing that was really difficult about it was creating something that could sit on top of the wheel that kept steady. So the first chariots were actually a huge feat of engineering and innovation. And I was thinking just today, as I was ordering my Uber, I was thinking, if someone was to take this glowing kind of window to somebody at the time and said, look, you can order a chariot on this, and you can actually watch your chariot as it arrives, they would have thought you're absolutely bonkers. And actually, the interesting thing is that the times we live in today, there are going to be things invented over the next 10, 20 years that are going to make us feel exactly like that. But for these guys, things were quite steady. And so the invention of the wheel, also at that time, there was also philosophy and science. We started to figure out ways to inquire, to test, and to build on our knowledge. And we did a lot when we shared this knowledge. So we sat around campfires, we told stories, and we managed to get to places. So we were no longer confined to our locality. We were able to take our ideas further, and actually these brains started to connect even more, and so we innovated further and further, and huge civilizations came out of that, with you know, amazing kind of complex systems that we actually use today as well. Oops. So okay, my time machine kind of got a bit bored and wanted to bring us right forward. So we're now in the 18th and 19th centuries. This is a time where the Industrial Revolution kind of really took off. And you can see again, the wheel is an important aspect of that. The wheels became the cogs. We started to kind of go from muscle power to machine power. We started to then feed these machines through using steam. It meant that we prospered, lots of jobs were created, and we started to create stuff. We started to make a lot of stuff that we don't actually need today, that kind of surrounds us. But a lot of the kind of processes also became automated, and this meant that we could prosper, and we started to globally exchange trade. So moving on to the late 19th century, electricity came in, and so we electrified, we gave power, we literally brought those machines to life that we'd created. Again, this meant that, and also with telephony, it meant that we could connect even further beyond our wildest imaginations, and it meant that we started to use a lot of energy as well. Coming to the 20th century, we're moving quite forward. This is the ENIAC, it's the first general digital computer that was made. And as you can see, it really resembles our machines. You know, it takes an entire room. And, you know, and at the time there was kind of, you know, the chairman of IBM thought that the world would only ever need 5 computers, which is kind of quite a funny thought, considering that this was only, you know, 100 years ago or so. Nevertheless, these, you know, about 23 years later, these clunky old machines actually put men on the moon, you know, so that was quite an impressive thing. So the computer that NASA used to put people on the moon is actually 1,300 times slower than that which is in your pockets today. And that's astonishing. That's a huge amount of you know, evolution in terms of kind of our ability to innovate, but also it gives you some insight into where we might be going in the future. This is where I come in. So 1977, I think, is a pretty good year. It was also the same time as Star Wars and Space Invaders, as you can see. I was born into a family that was pretty tech savvy. Both, you know, my dad and my 2 brothers were really into computers. I think for me, I always kind of saw it as something that was more like the boys' stuff. And obviously over the years realized that that was a really silly thing to think. And actually now I work in technology and absolutely love it. But essentially, what's interesting is, you know, for the first slide was talking about looking at the stars and wondering, and we made mythologies and stories in order to understand. We continue to kind of make up these stories, and that's a really important part of how we kind of, you know, envision this future. And so, you know, things like Star Wars, for instance, you know, there's lots of products, there's lots of things in Star Wars that are actually in existence today. So then the World Wide Web, and I don't know how many people remember this, but my first ever kind of encounter with the World Wide Web was getting my first email. And at the time, so I'm from Iran originally, and my parents had gone back to Iran, and my brother said to me, you know, you should sign up on email. And I was like, what is this thing? And he said, you know, it's basically a way for you to send a digital letter to mum and dad, and they get it straight away. And I thought, well, that's a good thing. Yeah, all right, you know, I'll set up. And little did I know that I would be spending entire days, you know, sitting in front of, you know, screens and emails, and it would take up so much of my time, and also entire industries will be built around this. So it was very, very early days, and I had no idea where this was all going. But I was certainly telling all my friends to get, you know, digital letters on the go. So again, back in the time machine, and really the last 3 decades have been absolutely, again, a huge, huge leap for us in terms of kind of developments in technology. There's 3 0.5 billion of us connected. So email gave rise to the internet, and as well as search engines. And we think of Google. Google is an artificial intelligence that we've been teaching for 30 decades now, and that's a really interesting thought to hold in your head. I think a lot of people kind of think of these things as not being human, but actually they're made by us, they are fed by us, they are us. Essentially, they're an extension of ourselves. And if you look at that picture, it looks very much like the picture of the brain that you saw earlier. And indeed, these are the kinds of systems that we're using today to create new technologies. So neural computing is actually in existence today. So it's kind of using the way that the brain works in order to overlay them with algorithms and to solve more complex problems that we can't solve ourselves. So the platform revolution, obviously not revolutions on platforms, but on top of this amazing kind of web that we created that connects all of these people, entire industries were formed. And along the way, lots of industries have been dropped. And I think, again, lots of people today talk about, jobs being lost to automation and what are we going to do? And actually, this has been a pattern throughout history. This is what happens, new innovations, new technologies come in, and there's a big boom, and there's a lot of activity, and, lots of jobs are created, and then we figure out how not to have to do those jobs, and we create more machines and technologies to take them, and I think, and those then create new jobs for us. So this platform revolutions gave us things like Facebook, and whether you love it or hate it, you're probably all on it. And things like, taking e-commerce online, so we can just about buy anything that we need or want online. We can ask Google anything, and we have it, in our pockets. It's almost kind of like our additional brain, in a way. So the smart and mobile, 2006 is kind of the point where most people say, is the kind of boom, which is when the iPhone came out. And there's 2.1 billion of us on, mobile phones today, and this is growing. Now, this is actually not something that's that uncommon. My niece was born a few years ago, and she was born profoundly deaf. Now, she now has a cochlear implant, so she's kind of like a cyborg, which is kind of quite cool. She can hear, and it's amazing. But the first sign language that she learned was, and guess what that means? Where's iPad? So we are constantly connected to these machines, and I'm not saying this is a good thing, and I think that we will be moving away from them as they become smarter. We will not need to continuously refer to them, because they will do tasks for us without us having to even think about it. But this is really, really important. It means that we are even more connected. We're sharing ideas even more than we ever did. So the campfire has certainly grown. And right now, as if the World Wide Web wasn't enough, we're also creating things like this, which is mixed reality and augmented reality. Now, this is a company which is called Magic Leap, a really great name, I think, for a company, because it's very much looking into the future. They haven't released anything yet in the kind of consumer domain at all. Most of their stuff is just videos that they put out that goes hugely viral. But you can see again that C3PO, you've got R2D2. These things from when I was born are still here, and they're still kind of delivering a lot of inspiration to innovators, and they kind of set the tone in a sense, of what we should expect from the future. So it's very, very important. So the next thing is, of course, you've probably heard, a lot of you, if you're in technology, about Internet of Things. And for a long time, it's been a bit of a joke, because a lot of the stuff's been like, oh yeah, fridge that can order you stuff. And actually, we're just about to kind of enter a phase where it is all going to start to make a lot more sense. And the reason for that is the artificial intelligence. We're going to cognify these objects. So not only did we create machines that built them, we put electricity through them and brought them to life, we're now going to give them a sense of the power to think for themselves. So we're going to be connecting all our devices. We're going to be capturing data. I'm capturing data right now on here. Everywhere I go, I'm counting my steps. It's also connected to my scales. So I actually know, and my scales will tell me the exercise that I've done and what difference that's making to my, fat ratio in my body. So, and that's just one small thing, and these products are being developed further and further now. So this huge global nervous system that's now collecting all the things that, connecting everything that we've made, including ourselves to it. Now, what does this mean for the next 3 decades? And I think this is really interesting. Again, when you sort of think about looking back at 1,300 years ago and where we are now, those first Homo sapiens, those brains that enabled us to get to here. So the next phase is about artificial intelligence, and we're already creating them. We've got IBM Watson, you've got Siri on your phone. I mean, I set my alarm, I speak to Siri every night. You know, Siri, set my alarm. Siri, what's the weather like today? And I know, you know, a lot of it people think, oh, this is ridiculous. But it's just as ridiculous as it would have been if you said to, you know, back when the wheel was invented, you said, you know, you could order a chariot and you'd be able to watch it through this magic mirror. It's kind of the same thing. And I think we kind of get into denial sometimes about what's coming, and maybe we're scared. It's kind of being scared of the unknown. But I don't think there's anything necessarily to be scared of. I'm definitely in that camp, because I think that the AIs that we create, it's not to do with them being us. They won't look like us. They won't behave like us. In fact, the thing that we want them to be is not like us. We want them to be artificial. Artificial means handmade, handicraft, and that's a really kind of interesting thing that is part of all of this. And I think what we want them to do is think in ways that we can't, and that's part of our evolution. So, you know, we've managed to connect with each other over thousands of years, and develop to this point. Now, the next evolution is, yes, to create different brains. So maybe there will be AIs that will think very slowly over a long period of time to solve something because that's what's needed. Or it might be an AI that does a task very, very, very fast for just, you know, one point in the day. So we'll have all of these intelligences, and they'll be faceless. They will be in everything. They already are in a lot of the devices around you, but they will make our lives better. And is this going to then give us more time? Because at the moment, I think technology is taking a lot of time away from us. You know, I sit on the tube and I watch everybody, okay, maybe they're listening to a good TED talk, you know, maybe they're reading a good book, but a lot of the time they're probably playing Candy Crush, or they're just, you know, looking at I tend to sort of, you know, peer over because I'm always fascinated by what people are doing. And, you know, so we need to move away. And what will we do with that time, you know, you know, what is that kind of going to do for us? So this slide is showing the infinity loop. Now, this is a very ancient symbol for immortality. And I think at the moment, because of kind of real-time data analytics, we've got cloud computing, it means that everything is in flow. So everything is real-time, and actually as consumers, as people, we are, you know, becoming restless. You know, we want the next upgrade. The next upgrade means it's going to be better, and we're going to constantly feel like we're newbies. You know, we're never going to be able to keep up with it. Yet, I think what we need to do is work through this to actually get to a point where we use the time that is used up by the AIs, by the intelligences that are going to do a lot of our tasks for us, to think of what's actually really important. And is that human revolution number 2? So, you know, we've advanced so far, and, you know, I've left out things like wars and all the terrible stuff. You know, I've kept on the positive side of this time machine, but essentially there is a lot to sort out. And I think that now more than ever, you know, we're more connected than we ever have been. We've got access to, you know, every amazing mind that's ever lived. It's all online. We can access all of their thoughts and everything that they've said. And we mustn't forget that actually all of those kind of, all the philosophies, everything that's gone before us is actually part of us today. So, you know, that very first machine that was created in our head, we've passed that on through our DNA. And it means that, you know, this is a mass computer. You know, if you want to think of it like that, it's a huge computer. So I want to kind of finish off with this quote by Sartre, which is, because we imagine we are free. And I think that's really the key thing that differentiates us. And I think that we shouldn't really be worried about artificial intelligence or the machines taking over, because that's the tool that we have, is imagination. And I think that's at the start of everything. That was the start of the first slide, when we looked up at the sky and we wondered, you know, what the world was about, and that was the thing that kind of helped us to move on and come to the point where we are. What you see behind here is planet number 9. I don't know if anyone's seen it in the news. It's an entire new planetary system that's just been discovered, well, over the last 2 years. And it's astonishing because they're discovering that this is the thing that is actually put our planetary systems on a slight tilt. So we're still going beyond our wildest imaginations. And I think another kind of interesting note is that Steve Johnson, who's an author, talks about the adjacent future, saying that it's like a shadow that overlays over the present. And actually that's an entire map to all the future possibilities that we can have. And I think with imagination, we can pull that towards us because we can see where we've come from. And now we can see that what we have at our fingertips. And really kind of, I suppose, make the changes and make the products, make the services, do the actions that are going to actually have a positive impact for the future. Thank you.